Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for a Film Fanatic show. I have been away on vacation, and so I've been taking a break from all things. So it's been great. I'm back. Came back Sunday. Went away for a couple of days out of town, and ate a lot of good food and really good time. Real good vacation. I haven't been on a real vacation in a while, and I basically didn't leave very. The farthest I went, we went to Portland, Maine. My girlfriend and I went to Portland, Maine, and we just ate a lot of incredible food, and then we traveled around the state for a little bit, and then we stayed at a really sweet hotel in Portland and got just spoiled with all kinds of good food and some music and some art, and it was wonderful. And I haven't had a vacation like that in a really long time, and it was nice to and we didn't have to leave too far. Next time, I think though, when I have a vacation time and after I save up some money, I like to take a vacation where we really go away. So that'll be really fun. But this was amazing. It was the best kind of decompression from everything and just taking a break from all things. But very excited to be back to doing these videos a little bit more often. So there was a little bit of a lag. There's probably about 5 days or so where I didn't get to do any videos. So, but I want to welcome aboard some of the new folks that have been coming and joining this wild circus and parade that I call Film Fanatic. It's been a blast. I've been doing some. I've done about three interview segments over the last few weeks or the last month, and that's been a blast. I've had some really amazing guests on the show. Like I've said before, that's always my favorite. That's my favorite thing to do with this channel is to just have these interview segments with people who are involved, to some capacity to in the arts, film, especially getting different perspectives. So I really, really enjoy that interaction with people from these different backgrounds, and I've been going to Bull Moose a lot. Probably probably a little too much, just because I've been spending a lot of money. But hey, you know, it's kind of what I like to spend money on. I don't really spend money on too many other things as far as what people spend a lot of money on. On whatever, and especially this day and age, everything is pretty expensive. But my thing that I like to do is to buy music and especially movies. I probably buy more movies than anything else, but I still buy lots of music. And so I'm a collector. So I'm always seeking out the next thing. I've been seeing some just incredible movies lately. I've been really beefing up my whole exploitation collection, and I've gotten some just killer movies. So I bought a pretty good amount of movies. I actually bought a lot of movies over vacation in our travels. So very excited. So today's show is on a movie called Mary, Bloody Mary, and I had heard about this movie. Again, this was a movie that I had heard about. I had never seen before. This came out in 1975, and it's a Mexican. I got two movies recently. I got this combo pack. This combo pack is just super awesome. It has two movies, and it's got Mary Bloody Mary on here, and then also another Spanish film called Blood Feast, which is just bonkers crazy. And I'm going to do a separate show. A lot of the times, like I have a lot of combo packs with a lot of these exploitation movies, and in the past I was doing shows on basically the whole thing, the whole package, in one show. But I like to give these movies, especially these really obscure, weird movies, I like to give them a special treatment. So usually when that happens, what I'll do is I've been doing like separate shows on each movie. So today's show is just going to be on Mary Bloody Mary, and then probably tomorrow or the next day or this week I'll do a show just on Blood Feast. But Mary Bloody Mary is a movie I did hear about. One of my favorite YouTube guys, Mood616, did a show on it, I believe. It was like in the middle of last year. It was one of the movies he covered, and it really intrigued my interest, piqued my interest. The Spanish cinema was an amazing place in the 70s. Of course, probably, Jess Franco, probably the greatest Spanish director. He was an amazing director, but there was also so many other filmmakers at that time. And it was a kind of this almost Renaissance period from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You had Jess Franco, of course, doing all kinds of giallo films, and then eventually, more horror based movies. Um, Odolowski, I mean, just so many great films. El Topo, another real famous director. So there was so many, and those guys were probably the most well-known directors of the time in from Spain. So, but there were so many other directors that came, that might not have, kind of hit the success that those guys hit. But I have acquired quite a few Spanish movies over the last couple of years, and just fabulous, just fabulous. There's a really cool special features component on here too, where they really go in depth with the whole, making of these movies, and especially the special features, in depth kind of analysis of Mary Bloody Mary is pretty fabulous. Dr. David Wilt is the kind of the film historian. This guy, I have a few other Spanish movies, and David Wilt does these like really extensive deep dives as far as kind of like from a film historian's perspective, and his knowledge of these really obscure Spanish exploitation movies is incredible. And I have probably about four other Spanish movies from this time period. This came out in '75, so this is wicked old school. But it's incredible. It's a vampire movie. Essentially, it's a vampire movie, but it's so amazingly original. It really takes. I'm a huge. It's when it comes to monster movies. I grew up. Like most kids, most people, I grew up. On the classic kind of Universal monsters, and then also Godzilla. So like the Toho Studios and Universal Studios were like, as far as I can remember back to to my childhood, those were the studios that kind of introduced me to horror and monster movies. I was raised on watching all the classic Universal movies and all of the Toho movies, all of the Godzilla movies. And so, those were integral parts of my life and my development, and making me into the film fanatic that I am. Of course, the Universal monsters, where you had Lon Chaney Jr. playing the Wolfman, Boris Karloff playing Frankenstein, Bela Lugosi playing Dracula. Classic, iconic roles. And also, those movies also I saw those films before I read the classic novels. Of course, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and also Bram Stoker's Dracula. Those books being my favorite. Frankenstein probably being my favorite as far as the classic Gothic literature monster movie, which became classic, iconic monster movies. And so those were were my jam. And of course, there's been so many, countless, versions, renditions, adaptations of those books. It's endless. So, and when it comes to those Universal monsters, I, I, I have said before in previous shows that I'm more of a, I have more of an traction to like the werewolf mythology. I really love, like, if you give me a really good werewolf movie, I'm super happy. You know, of course, Lon Chaney. There's been so many great werewolf movies. You know, you have American Werewolf in London, The Howling, amazing, probably my favorite werewolf movie. And then, you know, in the exploitation world, you have Paul Naschy, who played all of these incredible renditions of the Wolfman. So many great films, but right underneath that category, I have always had a deep love of vampire movies. And I bought this movie again. I bought this combo pack. I had never seen it before. I had heard of Mary Bloody Mary. I had heard of this movie, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what it was about. And initially, when I started watching this movie, I kind of got the sense that this is like, you know, a straight up slasher movie. But then it evolves into something I feel much different, into where it's essentially it's a vampire movie, but it's got this totally original, you know, take on the whole kind of vampire role, and it's essentially about this father and daughter in a weird way, where the father is this ancient vampire, and his daughter has, you know, is still young and is now a fully realized vampire, and she is, you know, on this thirsty path, and the father is trying to basically, you know, well, save save humanity by trying to kill himself and his daughter, because death is the only thing that will set them free. So it's kind of about that. But it's a total exploitation movie. It's super low budget. It's pretty trashy. It's super trashy. It's got some really bad editing. The storyline and the narrative kind of go off the tracks a little bit. But again, it's one of those cases where, or examples where it's kind of so bad it's good. It's a wild movie. It's totally, you know, it's totally bonkers. It was directed by Juan Lopez Montezuma, who was pretty prolific director in the 70s in Spain. He was also a cinematographer. Um, Very, very cool, but it's got such a cool style to it. You know, again, it's super trashy. It's pretty strange. It's very sleazy at times, which is amazing. It's got some great kills, and it's actually got a pretty awesome. There's a series of these car chase scenes in it that are actually really great. It's got some really cool plot twists and turns, really original, and I think this movie is awesome. I would love. I'm sure Mary Bloody Mary has like its own independent release, but I'm super excited with this combo pack because it does come with a really great, you know, special features edition. It's just a fabulous movie. It's just great. And I had heard about this movie. I think it was probably like the middle of last year on Moods on the YouTube guy Mood616, who is just a great lover and purveyor of all of these perverted low budget exploitation movies. He's based in Canada, and he had done a quick segment. He does these movie hauls, and I believe that Mary Bloody Mary was one of the movies he talked about. So again, I learn my two favorite channels that are out there are Mood616 and 42nd Street Forever. Those are the best. 42nd Street's probably my best. This guy is he's a UK YouTube guy, and I've been really watching his channel a lot. And the knowledge that he has of film, and especially, you know, these totally sleazy exploitation movies, is like unlike anything else. I came across his show through Mood 616. He raved about him, so I was like, I got to check this guy out. And those guys are definitely my favorite. And 42nd Street Forever is my favorite now, and then Mood 616 right behind. But they're all about these movies, and I have learned so much about these trash movies. I've come across so many cool titles that I never knew existed before. And as of late, I have been buying movies. Of course, I go back and forth by buying movies that I have seen before. A lot of these great classic movies that I saw when I was a kid in my introduction to horror and exploitation. During the time, the decade of the 80s, where I was a little kid and I was young enough to really be exposed to a lot of cool horror films in the time of VHS. So it's been a process of like revisiting a lot of those movies and buying a lot of those movies on Blu-ray in this, immaculate uncut, and especially these uncut versions of these films. I like typically when I watch a lot of these films, I love to watch the if there's a European version. There is a this movie does not have, it is dubbed. You can watch it. You can only watch it in English. It is a Spanish movie, but there's only the American version available, as far as I know. But it's still awesome, and it's interesting because on one hand, the dub version, when you watch a dubbed version of a lot of these European trash movies, there's a love and a charm about them watching them dubbed, because it just adds to the ridiculousness of the film. But but in all honesty, as a film fan, I really prefer to watch the film if that's an option. I really love to watch the film in its native language with English subtitles. Because as bad as a lot of these movies are, and again, it's the case of they're so bad, they're so good. I do see a difference when I watch and these are all, for the most part, all foreign films. I do see a difference in kind of understanding the movie, or being able to follow the movie, meaning that the film has a little bit more structure. It's a little bit more cohesive. The storyline is a little bit more intact, and I generally feel, whenever you watch a movie, especially before I got so deep into the exploitation movie world, especially when it comes to foreign movies, I've always loved foreign movies, but I noticed early on, when I would watch the American dubbed version, and then watch if there was the option to watch the film in its native language, I always noticed a big difference in the way the narrative was and the story was. When I typically would watch the American translation, um, the story would kind of get lost, as opposed to watching its native tongue, the film in its native tongue. The first time that ever happened to me was, and again, a completely different kind of thing, but the first time where I noticed that there was a difference between the American version and then the English version was the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is an amazing martial arts movie directed by Ang Lee. I saw that movie in the theater, and then I remember buying it on Blu-ray or DVD, and I noticed that there was an option to watch it in Mandarin or English, and there were two different cuts. And I had seen the theatrical release that was in the States, quite a few times, and then when I watched the foreign version in its original language, the story was stronger, it was tighter, the narrative was more cohesive. And ever since then, every time I see a foreign film, that's usually what I do, because I always feel the translation is lost a little bit when you watch the American version. But there's something to be said about, when it comes to watching exploitation movies, to just watch it in its totally trashy form, you know. So that is a thing. I know, watching 42nd Street Forever, watching his channel, he like watches the movie, kind of in its trashy form. Like usually, watching it in its English dubbed version because it does add a extra layer of kind of sleaziness or trashiness to the actual film experience. So I understand the allure of that, but I still will like try to seek it out. But Mary Mary Bloody Mary is a Spanish film, but it does not have a Spanish version. But it's still kick ass. I totally recommend this movie. Super awesome. It's super fun and it's really good. It's actually a great movie, I think, and it's got like it's got some great classic kind of vampire tropes, but the story and the story and the narrative is very original. I did not think it was a vampire movie when I started watching it. It definitely is a slasher movie in a lot of ways, but it evolves into where it's very much a vampire movie. But it's great. It's super awesome, and I can't recommend it enough. Came out in 1975. I mean, again, 70s, best decade ever. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.